okay? That's the good thing. So even though you give it from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 6 o'clock in the afternoon when you've signed it, you probably should give it 24 hours, 48 hours, even if it's only for one property. Okay? Because I want you to think about, you know, if somebody says, well, gee, I really like this property, and the potential that somebody's going to say that when you show that property to them, that if they write an offer 15 minutes after this contract expires, do you really have a buyer-broker agreement? And that has not yet been tested that I know of in the buyer-broker world.
So, okay.
So think about it. You've got the opportunity in paragraph 1 to expand the time, but in paragraph 4, you are limiting the property. So
you
it's
should do
only
it for a lot more than 48 hours.
There you go.
Thinking. I would do it for 3 months.
Well,
Okay.
if you do it
You
down
know?
here, if you say if within, under section 3B2,
Right.
if you just fill that in and say if within, you know, 200 calendar days or whatever, however many days you want to put after expiration of the representation period, they buy it, you still get paid, right?
Right.
Wouldn't that do it?
yes.
Yeah.
So you can have a lot of ways that you can protect yourself, and the protection is mostly for getting paid. You want to elevate yourself to the level of professionalism where you deserve to get paid, and you work very hard to get paid. And if you look through all of this, you've got the irrevocable ability, the irrevocable portion of the exclusive. You've got a specific amount or percentage of the acquisition price to negotiate. Now, and first-time buyers, I think, are probably just like anybody else. They want to negotiate. They think, you know, those late-night infomercials about negotiating are really true. They may be true in other areas, not so much true, I think, in our area, certainly not right now. So you can help them negotiate in paragraph 3 the amount of the compensation. And don't forget that the amount of compensation that's going to be paid is from the buyer. It actually is from the buyer. Now, if you continue to read through paragraph 3, that the compensation can come from the seller if it's a listed property. If you are representing someone who is possibly looking for just anything, not necessarily on the market, if you know a lot about the neighborhood or houses that are going to meet your buyer's criteria, and you know that there is a house that's not on the market and has not been on the market, you need to have a buyer-broker agreement signed where your buyer is going to pay the compensation before you introduce them to that property. All right? Otherwise, if a property is not listed and a seller does not have an agreement to pay compensation for the sale, and your buyer doesn't have an agreement with you to pay you compensation, and you introduce the buyer and the seller, there is nothing holding them to pay a real estate commission to anybody. So you've got to have all of your agreements lined up, and you can help the buyer understand that you are not a dilettante housewife out doing this for fun. This is your profession. This is you are a highly educated individual who knows what you're doing. You have lots of resources, both in your collegiate office where you work, as well as the California and the National Association of Realtors, who will make sure that you do a good professional job. The other thing is that if you represent a buyer on a non-listed property, you want the buyer to understand that you need to get paid even if the seller is not going to pay a commission. That's very important, because just because you're going to show a buyer a non-listed property or a FSBO potentially, someone who's put a sign out saying I'm representing myself on the sale of my house, and that seller will not pay you a commission, you need to get paid, and you need to get that buyer to understand. So you need to think about beforehand, and this is something that I think groups of agents here in our office can sit around and talk about. How much do you charge somebody? Do you charge them a percentage? Do you charge them a set amount? Do you charge them an hourly fee? How do you get paid if you charge them an hourly fee?
So that would also maybe come in handy for a short sale or a REO when the bank comes back and says, I'm not going to pay this, but I'll pay this.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I understand that the banks will, some of the banks, not all of the banks, will honor a buyer brokerage agreement. And it depends on so many things, on whether it's an investor, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans absolutely are nothing less than 5%. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will not let the banks squash down your commission below that. If it's a private investor, they don't have to follow the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, but most of the banks now are going in line with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and not trying to take it down less than 5% total. If there's two agents, if there's only one agent, they may. And quite frequently, the banks, depending on all of those criteria, may say, well, then the buyer can pay for the brokerage commission. Since you have a buyer-broker agreement, an exclusive buyer-broker agreement where the buyer has agreed to pay out of their own pocket the buyer brokerage commission, we're going to take it out of the mix in the short sale. So that is a potential. You have to be very careful about how you you help your client understand. And the other part that could be a problem, because we haven't gotten the banks yet to figure it out, is if a buyer is going to pay for it, it should be included in the loan. But the banks won't do that unless the money passes through the seller. So think about it. If you've got a $500,000 property where the buyer is going to pay you a 2.5% commission on the purchase of a $500,000 property, what's the commission? Okay, $25,000, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I knew you'd get there. Okay, so it's $25,000, and the buyer says, well, I'm already paying $150,000 as a good faith deposit. I don't have another $25,000 to pay you, the broker. I thought that got financed with the loan. Not unless it's part of the purchase price. And then it comes back from the seller and is leveraged. And the banks haven't figured that out yet. There are some inroads that we're making, but this is all part of that.
You can't discuss commission in an offer. Then how do you write it that way so that, let's say the seller hasn't agreed to pay compensation?
You can discuss commission in an offer depending on what kind of a listing it is. If it is a multiple listing service listing, then you cannot discuss in the offer itself an increase in the commission.
Oh, but you can specify the payment.
Yes. However, so we'll go to that just a little bit. If you have a buyer who says, look, I'm going to pay you dollar amount, $20,000 on a $500,000 purchase, and I want therefore to have the purchase price reduced by that amount, and I don't want to pay the commission to the seller, so therefore I'm going to get a reduction in price, and of course you get a reduction in your property taxes and all of the rest of the costs that are triggered by the selling price. And the buyer says, okay, I want that to come through you. Then you can discuss it in the offer, as long as it is